Good morning, and welcome to Lesson 25 in our study of the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, if you've been following along, you'll understand that Solomon has been trying to find the meaning of life without God. And he's been doing this by comparing what life seems to be without God and as well at times with God. And he's already said that wisdom is better than not having wisdom. It helps you do a number of things, although it's not the real reason for being. It certainly helps you cope and to contemplate and to prepare for things better than if you don't have wisdom to do that. And he also said that there are many things that we can't really prepare for. In the previous chapter, he mentioned in verse 7, said that he does not know, man does not know what will happen. So who can tell him when it will occur? In other words, things happen that we're not prepared for and can't be prepared for, but by having proper knowledge and wisdom about what may happen, it helps you better when these things do occur. He also says in the same chapter that he saw all the work of God, that a man cannot find out the work that is done under the sun. For though a man labors to discover it, yet he will not find it. In other words, no matter what we do, we will not understand all the work, the purposes, the plans of God. So now he's talking again, as we enter the second part of chapter 9, he talks again about what he has seen and what he has discovered. And when he talks about the second part, starting in verse 11, he says, I returned and saw under the sun, S-U-N, not S-O-N, under the sun, under humanity, under natural events only, that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, nor bread to the wise, nor riches to men of understanding, nor favor to men of skill. In other words, what we do, our talents that we have, what we plan for, often do not occur. The person who's swiftest in the race, the person who is the fastest one in ability, does not always win the race. Maybe that person gets sick or falls or has an injury. And many people who have planned for races like the Olympics, something has happened that prevented them from winning the race that they planned so hard to run. And the same thing, the battle not always is won by the strong. There are times when the strongest army does not win the war, or when the strongest person does not win the fight. And for instance, take David and Goliath. Goliath being much larger and stronger than David, yet David won that fight. Nor bread to the wise. So the ones who are wisest, who have the most intelligence, who have the most intellect, don't always bring home or do what is really important. People who go to universities, people who have large degrees, don't often make the great discoveries, understand or develop the great events that the world really turns on. So the bread, the benefits don't always go to those who are wise, nor do the riches to those of understanding. People make wealth by many means and in many ways, and not always because they have the greatest knowledge about what they are undertaking. Point is, time and chance happen to every person. So, depending upon the situation, and depending upon, as you might say, chance, things happen, both for good and for bad. So in this world, there is no real guarantee of what's going to happen. If you are skilled, if you are strong, if you are wise, if you have a lot of understanding, it's not a guarantee that things are going to work out well in your favor. And this is what he's saying here, because time and chance happen to them all. For a man does not know his time, like fish taken in a cruel net, like birds caught in a snare. So the sons of men are ensnared in an evil time when it falls suddenly upon them. So all these people who are wise, who are strong, who are intelligent, all these people can suddenly be caught up in something beyond their capacity to change. We know people who are wealthy, who are intelligent, who have companies, who have businesses, who have a lot of favor, and that they end up in the snare of drugs, of alcohol, of some kind of interpersonal relationship, of some difficulty that ensnares them and keeps them from maintaining or completing their full potential. How many people have been changed because they get lost in the snare of gambling, or they try to make a fast buck some way and are caught doing it? So people often don't understand how easy it is to get caught up in such a snare. And this is what Solomon's referring to. Like birds in a flock who suddenly get in a snare unexpectedly, or fish in a school who get caught in a net unexpectedly for them. This is the way that happens to many men and many women in this life. So under the sun, S-U-N, these things happen. It doesn't mean that the wise and the intelligent and the smart and the strong are going to make everything better for themselves. They often get caught up in problems. So the point is that talent and the best actions aren't always rewarded in this life. We end up getting caught or doing things, foolish things, that cause us our relationship with God, our relationship with others, our achievements. So this is what he's saying here. I saw under the sun that these things happen, that it's not always the wise, the swift, the strong, understanding that succeed because of chance, because people get caught up in things unexpectedly, and as a result they lose their benefits and their advantage. Now he goes on to say, this wisdom I have also seen under the sun, and it seemed great to me. There was a little city with few men in it, and a great king came against it, besieged it, and built great snares around it. Now there was found in it a poor wise man, and he by his wisdom delivered the city. Yet no one remembered that same poor man. Then I said, wisdom is better than strength. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard. Words of the wise spoken quietly should be heard, rather than the shout of a ruler of fools. Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroys much good. So Solomon tells a little story here about a city besieged, a small city apparently with few men, besieged by a greater army, and yet one poor wise man said something, did something, planned something that saved the city. He should be honored, he should be respected, but because he was poor and quiet, he was soon forgotten. This is a story that even men who do things, unless you are in a certain group, shall we say, or in the clique, often what you say and what you do are not remembered. And it's the people who do the most in the background that often achieve the most, even though they are not the ones honored and they are not the ones remembered in the long run. So what he's saying here is that people who do things for great things sometimes and do a lot of good, but are only in the background, are often not remembered as they should be, or rewarded as they should be, or remembered as they should be. Then it goes on to say, wisdom is better than strength. It's better to have good wisdom than it is to have physical strength, for many reasons. Nevertheless, the poor man's wisdom is despised, and his words are not heard, because many people who don't say a lot, who are in the background, are not really recognized or heard the way they should be. Rather than the shout of a ruler of fools, wisdom of the wise, spoken quietly, should be heard. You can take many people who are in power, who are in authority who have the ego and the gall to say things that they shouldn't say, and they are often heard, they are often listened to, they are often followed more than the wise people who are quiet in the background who actually have true wisdom. People who actually mean more and say more, but are not recognized because of their position. Whereas people who are in authority, sometimes by bombacity or by ego, will get more attention and get more time, get more recognition. This is not the way it should be, really, but it is the way it is on this earth, especially under men's rule. Wisdom is better than weapons of war. Yet one person who goes astray can make a huge difference. We've often known people who have spied for other countries who have caused a great deal of damage to the country that they're supposed to be supporting. Or people who have embezzled money from companies because they're supposed to support. Or two or three people who speak badly about others can ruin reputations, churches, buildings, institutions. One sinner can destroy much good. The thing I pointed this is that there are many people who do little in the background, who do a lot in the background, but are recognized little. The point is that God recognizes everyone. What you do is not going to be forgotten. What you do in this world is going to be remembered in the next. You either feel that life has nothing to do with anything other than this world, and therefore what you do in this world is all there is. You live in this world, that's all there is. What you do then probably will be forgotten, the same way we remember little about what happened in the last century by most people. But if you believe in God and have a relationship with God, then there's a lot awaiting for you in the next life. It says in 1 Corinthians 2:4 that man does not know, eye has not seen or ear has not heard what things God has in plans for those who love him. It says in John that Jesus went to prepare a house. I go and prepare a mansion so that where I go, you will also be there with me. We have no idea what awaits us in the coming world. But even though our actions in this world are not recognized, are not really sometimes respected, God respects them all. So Solomon is saying, really, there is so much in this world that we can't plan for, that by having wisdom it helps us cope with it, but still does not help us prevent some of the things that happen. And you can be swift, you can be smart, you can be wise, you can be intelligent, and things still will not go your way because of the snares that develop us, because of the chances that sometimes comes our way. And even if we do things in the background, even if we do great things, sometimes that's not recognized, because people who have a greater tendency to bombacity, to promote themselves, to speak, often get the recognition more than those who are quiet in the background, who may have greater wisdom and intelligence and plans than those who are in leadership. But that's the way the world is, and that's the way it's going to be, as long as man is in control. Anyway, that's the end of chapter 9, sorry. Next week we'll go down to chapter 10. We're getting towards the end of the book, so hang in. We'll be through it before too long. Next week we'll start chapter 10. So hope to see you then. Bye for now.